The Lion has returned, but can he stop Chaos from completing their dastardly plan? A plan that turns out to have started in a whole different book series like years ago? Find out in this final episode of Arks of Omen. So it's the final installment of the Arks of Omen, book 5 in this 4-part series, and in this we get, well, some sort of conclusion. It's fair to say that maybe this isn't what people are expecting to happen. Anyway, if you're new here, I recommend that you start way back with the first book up here, but if you don't want to do that, well, here's the summary. Abaddon the Despoiler, War Master of Chaos, and Vashtorr the Archifane, demonic lord of the Hell Forges, have been attempting to unlock a device of great power, sealed away during a primordial age. To do this, they converted a load of space hulks into Arks of Omen, and sent them out across the galaxy to search for ancient relics and artifacts, objects that could be used to build this key. As the Arks sent back their findings, they started to assemble their weapon in the Somnium stars, eventually discovering the whereabouts of the 3 key fragments. That's key like important, but also to build a key. All but one of the key fragments was eventually recovered, but while the attack on the Dark Angel's fortress monastery of the Rock failed to capture the 3rd artifact, Vashtorr has succeeded in luring the Dark Angel's fleet to his staging area, ready to try again. So, the Dark Angels gathered. Their captives, imprinted by Vashtorr, had all been leaking information to their interrogator chaplains when, all at once, they started giving up the location of this great work, the Idolatross system. But the Angels weren't total idiots. They knew that while they had to stop whatever was going on, they were also walking into a trap. The great and the good of the chapter gathered on the Rock, the fragment of their ancient homeworld of Caliban that had survived its destruction, and now served as their fortress. Azrael, Ezekiel, Asmodai, Belial, Samael, as well as the summoned chapter masters of the Unforgiven, the successor chapters of the Dark Angels. In total, 3/4 of the combined strength of the Unforgiven chapters accompany the Dark Angels as they approach this system, and their combined Raven wings sped out into the dark. They might be walking into a trap, but they'd do this with as much forewarning as they could muster. The Ravenwing confirmed the Chaos forces. The Idolatross, Apostra, and Sacroleum systems were swimming with Chaos war fleets, but Idolatross itself was the most heavily defended, with great numbers of Dark Mechanicum warbarks present. Conclaves of librarians led by Ezekiel confirmed that Vashtorr was there, at the heart of the system, near some great device of arcane power. The Dark Angels split their forces. Surprise would be their greatest weapon. Their successors were directed at Apostra and Sacroleum, while the Rock and its fleet would simultaneously break warp in Idolatross and take the fight directly to the heretics. The resulting Battle of Idolatross was colossal. The Rock, swathed in its Gorgon's Aegis and accompanied by a greatly reinforced Dark Angels fleet, broke into the system, heading directly for the strange energy readings near its core. The Baal fleet of the Ark of Omen Netherworld Blade responded. The Dark Angels outnumbered the Chaos forces, but the Chaos ships were augmented with strange and esoteric weaponry developed by Vashtorr and the Dark Mechanicum. The Netherworld Blade itself pushed into the Dark Angels' lines, but the Unforgiven had to press on. They feared that Vashtorr might escape. Daring fleet actions took out the Ark's colossal engines and destroyed its vital systems before the borders were recalled and the fleet just pushed on. As they closed, they noticed strange symptoms, weird warp resonance, and a strange sense of dread that pervaded the fleet, though this unholy terror was worst on the Rock itself. Nobody knew why until they saw what lay at the system's core. A planet, a fragmented world, chunks of rock held together by cogs and chains and hellish machinery, a piston-driven hellscape of industrialization, layered over the remains of burned forests. A planet reconstructed piece by piece and twisted into something new, and that planet was their ancient homeworld, Caliban. Okay, so this is going to take a bit of explaining, which handily Vashtorr does in this book, but to really get the full picture, we need to look into some other books, so here we go. Millions of years ago, before even the war in heaven, the greatest powers in the galaxy, beings that are like gods to any other species, created great engines. It's unclear if these are meant to be the Catan, the old ones, or whatever came before them. Anyway, when they were done reshaping the universe with these terrifying engines, they split them up. One was split into 3 parts and hidden as part of 3 different worlds, but these parts were sentient and longed to reunite. During the Horus Heresy, the Dark Angels Legion had come across 2 of these fragments. In the Perditus system, their Primarch, Lion L. Johnson, discovered the Tukulka device, a navigation device that allowed the Dark Angels to move more easily through the warp storms of the Heresy. The Tukulka was the bridge that held the other 2 together, but it turned out that they already knew one of these others. The Ouroboros was the dark spirit of their homeworld Caliban itself, the strange presence that led to all the mutated monsters that haunted its forests, and it became instrumental in the tale of the Fallen, the Dark Angels that rebelled against the Imperium when Caliban started to be industrialized beyond recognition. And the third is something called the Plague Heart, which is like an evil planetoid that just showed up in a book. All this is recounted in the 2015 novel The Unforgiven, where the Tukulka device itself tricks Typhon of the Death Guard, Astalan and Cypher of the Fallen, and the Dark Angels into reuniting the 3 of them above the ruins of Caliban in a plot that would see the entire history of the galaxy change forever, but that plan failed and the 3 devices are split up again. But evidently Vashtorr read that book and was taking notes because it looks like he's trying again. He's not only got Caliban, he's remade it into a new demon planet he called Wormwood. And along with the Ouroboros and the Plague Heart, he'd also recovered all the other ritually significant artifacts that made Caliban what it was. The evil crystals from the downed Dark Talon on Arthas Moloch in Farsight, or the pillar recovered from the Iron Angel's Fortress Monastery back in the very first book, that was from Caliban. All he needed was the 3rd device, the one stored in the rock, the Tukulka. Anyway, seeing this from the bridge of the rock, Azrael was horrified and lost to rage, presumably because they just did this plot a few years ago. Recognizing the scale of sacrilege to their ancient homeworld, they sounded the advance and deployed onto the planet, hunting for Vashtorr, their fleet taking up supporting positions above the weird world. Led by Azrael, the Dark Angels deployed to the surface, but they were assaulted by hordes of demons and dark Skitarii, and as they battled their way through the pistons and cogs of the outer shell to what seemed like the center of the weird emanations, they found not Vashtorr, but Angron, the demon prince of Khorne, summoned again. And as things went south on the planet, a hidden portal in the system's star opened and the real Chaos Fleet came out, led by the War Master and accompanied by Vashtorr's upgraded Ark, the Aurak Myriad. They fell upon the orbiting Unforgiven fleet, the Aurak Myriad burning directly for the rock, and as the monstrous ship finally came apart under the barrage of the Dark Angels, Vashtorr transferred himself through the tiniest of systems in the rock to the chamber that contained the Tukulka device and vanished with it into the warp. Things were going badly enough, but when the commander of the fleet, Grand Master Nakir of the Consecrators, was alerted to another fleet coming in system, they feared the worst. But instead of more Chaos forces or another Ark, they received hails of greeting from none other than Dante of the Blood Angels, and he'd brought Dad. Lion L. Johnson, lost Primarch of the Dark Angels Legion, had returned, said Dante. When last we saw him, he was asleep in a secret chamber of the rock, but now he was awake again. And this book just doesn't say why. Sorry, he's just there. Hunting in dream forests, his mind dislocated from old truths, a weird vision of a mysterious warrior that had appeared all over Imperium Nihilus, rampaging through Arks of Omen and leaving them deserted before being eventually discovered by Dante. The Lion was accompanied by a bodyguard of kind of nice Fallen. He renamed them the Risen. Obviously all the Fallen that had actually turned to Chaos that he'd come across, he'd killed, but these were the good ones. And along with these redeemed warriors, he'd been fighting a long war against Chaos, appearing and disappearing wherever he was needed with a spooky aura and a pleasing pine fresh scent. Now we know why these exist. The War Master's fleet pulled back, not wanting to be caught in the middle of the two Imperial fleets, as Dante and his Blood Angels led a drop assault. Reinforcing Azrael's Dark Angels on the planet, Dante fought Angron on the surface of Wormwood but was smashed aside, though before Angron could claim his skull for Khorne, green mists enveloped him and the Lion appeared, ploughing into the Demon Primarch and drawing him away from Dante. Azrael moved in to support his wounded counterpart and signaled for extraction. The Dark Angels and Blood Angels fighting side by side through hordes of Nurgle demons and Skitarii to reach the extraction points, occasionally, if reluctantly, helped by the black-armoured Dark Angels of the Risen. Meanwhile, Angron and the Lion fought, plummeting through the strata of Wormwood, smashing through cogs and pistons, a bearded magical stranger and a great bat-winged demon plunging through the fires of industry until, eventually, they landed on softer ground. A fragment of ancient Caliban, its mists and forests surrounded them, and suddenly the Lion held the upper hand. He was as a shadow, Angron too slow to catch him as the Primarch emerged from the mists, impaled him on his sword, and chopped off his brother's head with the edge of the Emperor's shield. And then he too made for the extraction zones. To stay would be destruction, as even he could not stop what the forces of chaos had put in motion, what exactly the heretics had awakened. In the center of the planet, Vashtorr finally recombined the three fragments of the ancient key, and ley lines of power burst across the surface as Wormwood, ancient Caliban, was transformed into the great engine it always was, one of the original devices used to build the Webway, an eons-old tunneling device that could burrow through the spaces between real space and the warp, through time itself, allowing the forces of the War Master to... I'm not sure, really? The last we see of it is burrowing into an alternate dimension followed by the Chaos Fleet, which means they could strike anywhere, but they could already do that, right? Because they're chaos and the warp wasn't ever really a problem. I don't know. It probably does other stuff too. It's probably really scary. Anyway, chaos win. Like they just win. They just combine the key. They get the thing. And the Imperium get the Lion back. And that's it. That's the Arks of Omen. I assume to find out more about what old Sleepyhead has been up to, we'll need to wait for Mike Brooks' new novel to be out, but I'm pretty sure this massive tunneling death engine is going to be pretty important in the future. But for now, the story is over. Of course, there's more in this book. Boarding assault rules for the remaining factions, rules for the Lion and his pals, even rules for the Adeptus Arbites released in the recent Kill Team, which is really good, although they really need the ability to get in a police car to be used outside a Space Hulk. But as always, I'm sure someone else will end up talking about the rules. If you've enjoyed following this series, well, look, I've got a few of these on my channel, guides to the current and past happenings in the world of Warhammer 40k, in case you want to get up to speed in time for, say, a new edition to come out. And I'll continue to post more of these as and when I get the opportunity. Thanks for sticking with me through 5 of these books, and see you for the next one. And if you'd like to support the channel, well, like and subscribe and click follow. And also, we have a Patreon, which also has the obligatory Discord. Links for all of those are in the description. See ya.